When you walk away from a man who's been taking you for granted, you're not being cold, dramatic, or manipulative. You're demonstrating something far more powerful. You're showing that your self-worth doesn't rely on his validation. That your time, your energy, and your love are not to be wasted on someone who doesn't appreciate them. This is not about creating a scene or forcing his hand. It's about silently communicating that you know your value and you're willing to walk away from anything that doesn't honor it. Men don't chase women because they shout their worth. They chase women because they embody it. The act of walking away becomes a mirror. You're reflecting back to him what he's failing to see, and in doing so, you're giving him a choice: either rise up to meet your standards or watch you disappear. That's the moment he feels the shift. That's when he starts seeing you through new eyes, and the chase begins not because you asked for it, but because you stopped waiting for it. There is something psychologically magnetic about someone who doesn't beg to be chosen. It's the woman who knows how to walk, not the one who clings, that a man remembers. Why? Because she breaks the pattern. He's used to the dance where he pulls away and she chases, but when you flip the script, when you step away instead of stepping closer, you interrupt that loop. And interruption gets attention. It makes him curious, uncomfortable even. He wonders, why isn't she fighting for me like everyone else? That question echoes louder than any text you could have sent or conversation you could have initiated. Your silence becomes powerful. Your absence becomes loud. Suddenly, you're not just another person in his life. You're a mystery he needs to understand. The reason walking away is so effective is because it creates contrast. In relationships, people often don't notice what they have until it's gone, or at least until the certainty of it being there is gone. When you walk away, you remove the comfort of your presence. He no longer gets to rely on your emotional support, your affection, or your availability. That absence is a shock to his system. It's in the quiet space where you used to be that he begins to reflect. He thinks about how safe he felt with you, how good you made him feel, how much lighter life was when you were around. And that realization doesn't come when you argue for your place. It comes when you vacate it. That's when appreciation is born. That's when he starts to feel the void. Walking away is not about manipulation. It's about alignment. You're not doing it to get a reaction. You're doing it because you've realized that your value doesn't belong in hands that don't treat it right. And that realization alone changes your energy. Men feel energy far more than they hear words. You may have told him 100 times how much you cared or how much you wanted things to work, but it's when you stop trying, when you leave with grace and quiet strength, that your message finally lands. That's the moment he stops feeling entitled to you. That's when he starts to notice the cost of his inaction, and that cost often becomes unbearable, because he didn't just lose your body, he lost your light, your loyalty, your love. And that's not so easily replaced. Most people are drawn to what feels rare and hard to reach. That's human nature. When something is easily accessible and always available, we unconsciously devalue it. But when someone begins to feel elusive, not because they are playing games, but because they genuinely have boundaries and self-respect, it triggers something deeper. That rarity, that sense of I may lose her, sparks a desire to pursue, to correct, to reclaim. So when you walk away, you stop being the woman he assumed would always be there. You become the one who was there and now isn't, and it's in that gap where he feels the depth of his loss. It's in that moment that your absence creates more impact than any presence ever could. You see, people don't value what you say as much as they value what you do. You can tell a man you're done, but if your actions keep proving otherwise, he'll never take you seriously. But when your actions align with your words, when you actually walk away and don't look back, it sends a clear, unmistakable message. You are not afraid to lose someone who isn't afraid to lose you. That kind of confidence is rare. It's the type of strength that doesn't need to announce itself, it speaks for itself, and when a man sees that strength, he begins to reevaluate not just you, but himself. He starts questioning why he didn't give you more, why he let it get this far. And those questions often lead to regret, and eventually a chase. But let's be clear, walking away doesn't just make him chase, it makes him choose, because once you've removed yourself from the dynamic, he's no longer in control. You've taken back the power. Now he has to decide, will he show up differently or will he lose you for good? And that decision can only happen in the space you've created by leaving. As long as you're still trying to fix things, still reaching out, still proving your worth, he's not being called to choose, he's just reacting. But when you step away and let silence take your place, it forces clarity. He can no longer hide behind excuses. The choice becomes real, and that realness is what often leads to a renewed pursuit. Walking away is not weakness, it's emotional strength. It's the ability to love someone and still choose yourself. It says, I care about you, but I won't lose me trying to keep you. That kind of emotional maturity isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. It draws the right kind of man closer, not because you're forcing it, but because you're inspiring it. You're not chasing, you're leading, and real men are drawn to women who lead with value, not desperation. They're drawn to women who don't settle for breadcrumbs, who don't stay just because it's familiar. When you walk away, you give him a new lens to see you through, and for many men, that lens changes everything. And here's the final truth. A man might not notice the value of a woman when she's constantly trying to prove it. But the second she stops trying, when she chooses peace over proving, his eyes open. He starts replaying moments, rethinking his actions, retracing his steps. And suddenly, all the things he overlooked become the things he misses most. Your laugh, your loyalty, your love. He starts to feel them in the quiet of your absence. That's why walking away isn't giving up. It's leveling up. It's stepping into a place where your value is no longer up for debate. Where he either rises to meet you or watches you disappear into a life that's far too valuable to waste. When someone believes you'll always be there, no matter what, they stop feeling the need to earn you. They become comfortable, and comfort often breeds complacency. But when you remove your presence, when you stop initiating, stop replying, stop showing up the way you always did, you create space. And that space isn't just a void, it's a mirror. It reflects everything he's taken for granted. He starts to feel the shift, even if he doesn't understand it at first. Something that once felt guaranteed is now uncertain. That certainty is gone, and in its place is tension. That tension is what sparks urgency, and it's that urgency that drives people to chase. Scarcity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. We crave what feels limited, and we overlook what feels endless. So when your affection was constant, when your time was always available, it wasn't that he didn't appreciate you, it's that he didn't have to. But once that energy is pulled back, once the messages stop coming and your presence fades, he notices the difference. What was once effortless becomes something he has to think about, reach for, work for, and that switch wakes him up. Now, the woman who was always around feels further away, and that distance begins to matter. He doesn't chase because you vanished. He chases because something valuable suddenly feels like it's slipping through his fingers. People don't realize how deeply they're attached to someone until that connection starts to fade. When you're always available, there's no contrast. There's no moment where he has to wonder, what happened? Where is she? But the moment you step back, that question becomes real. He starts checking his phone. He starts replaying your last conversation. He starts wondering what shifted, and in those moments, he begins to experience your value in a way he never could when you were always there. It's not because you've changed. It's because he's now noticing what life feels like without your energy in it. And that shift doesn't just make him miss you, it makes him chase the feeling you used to bring. When you walk away, it doesn't create interest, it reveals it. If he was never truly invested, your silence will be met with more silence. But if there was something real there, your absence won't go unnoticed. It will poke at him, it will linger. He'll feel it at random times, when he's alone, when he sees something that reminds him of you, when he hears your favorite song. Those little moments start stacking up, and soon he realizes the emotional stability you offered, the comfort, the spark. He starts to feel the cost of losing something real, and that cost becomes a motivator. He's not chasing because he's lonely, he's chasing because he finally understands what you meant to him. It's not about playing games, it's about protecting your energy. You don't pull away to manipulate, you pull away because you deserve reciprocity. You deserve a relationship where the effort is mutual, not one-sided, and sometimes the only way to create that balance is to step back completely. When you do, it sends a powerful message: I'm no longer available to be half loved. That boundary shakes things up. He's forced to ask himself whether he's willing to step forward or let you go. That's when his actions start to align with his feelings. Because urgency doesn't come from pressure, it comes from the fear of genuine loss. And that fear is what fuels the chase. Think about it. When something is always within reach, you don't rush to grab it. You assume it'll still be there tomorrow. That's how many people treat love. But the moment that option starts fading, they realize they've been too passive for too long. He realizes that someone else could experience your warmth, your passion, your soul. That thought alone creates a storm in his mind. He pictures you moving on. He imagines you smiling at someone else. And suddenly, he feels something he hasn't felt in a long time: urgency. He scrambles to reach out, to reconnect, to remind you, and himself, that he still wants this. But that only happens once you're no longer within arm's reach. There's a reason people often come back just when you finally started to let go. Because that's when your energy shifts. You're no longer anxiously waiting for a text or wondering what went wrong. You're healing, growing, and choosing yourself, and ironically, that's when he feels the pull the most, because now he's not the center of your world. You've taken your power back, and people can feel that energy shift, especially when they've grown used to your constant availability. He doesn't feel entitled to your time anymore. He realizes it has to be earned, and in that realization, he starts chasing not just you, but the version of himself that can deserve you. Scarcity forces clarity. When everything is easy, we don't ask the hard questions. But when something begins to slip away, we start digging deeper. Why did I pull away? What did she really mean to me? Why do I feel this way now? Those are the questions that drive action. They force him to confront what he never had to when you were always there. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to say a word. Your absence does the talking. It's your withdrawal that brings him face to face with his own feelings. And those feelings, once confronted, don't just fade. They ignite something powerful. The realization of what he's about to lose turns passivity into pursuit. Urgency is born from emotion, not logic. He may have logically known you were amazing, but he didn't feel the fear of losing you until you made that possibility real. And that fear isn't about panic, it's about clarity. It's the kind of fear that strips away pride, ego, and excuses. Suddenly, reaching out matters more than being right. Apologizing feels more urgent than defending his choices. Fighting for the relationship becomes more important than staying emotionally distant. And none of this comes from your persuasion. It comes from your absence. That's the beauty of scarcity. It doesn't require effort. It requires distance, and that distance transforms how he sees you. The truth is, we're not attracted to desperation. We're drawn to strength. And there's nothing stronger than someone who knows when to walk away. You stop waiting. You stop begging. You stop offering all of your love to someone who isn't showing up. And by doing that, you create scarcity. Not out of manipulation, but out of necessity. That scarcity changes the dynamic. It forces him to either rise up or step back. And if he chooses to chase you now, it's not because you asked him to. It's because he's finally realized what he's losing. And the fear of that loss becomes the fuel that drives him forward faster than he ever moved before. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment everything shifts. When you're constantly explaining, fixing, or chasing, you place yourself in a position of emotional disadvantage. You hand over your power in hopes that someone else will finally see what's already so clear to you. But when you walk away, not with bitterness, but with dignity, you stop fighting for a seat at a table where you should have been invited from the start. That silence, that stillness, becomes louder than any argument you could make. It forces him to look at what you brought to the table without the distraction of your presence constantly trying to remind him. Suddenly, your worth becomes obvious because now he has to sit with what's missing. Your absence becomes the teacher, and he begins to realize just how much you were holding things together. Relationships often fall into unbalanced dynamics where one person is always trying harder. You bend, you adjust, you compromise, hoping he'll meet you halfway. But what happens instead is that he becomes accustomed to the effort you put in. It becomes normal, expected. And the more you give without requiring the same in return, the more you reinforce the idea that he doesn't need to give more. But when you pull that energy back, when you no longer show up the way you did, the dynamic collapses. It's like taking a support beam out of a structure. It can no longer stand the same way. That's when the power dynamic begins to flip. He realizes you were the one holding the emotional weight, and that realization forces him to consider his role in losing you. Power doesn't come from control. It comes from self-respect. When you walk away, you're not trying to manipulate him into feeling something. You're responding to what's already been made clear. You're choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. And that decision doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers to his subconscious that you're not someone who waits around hoping for change. You are the change, and that kind of quiet power is undeniable. It doesn't need an audience, and it doesn't need permission. It simply is, and that's what shakes him, because he suddenly sees that the emotional control he thought he had was never real. You just hadn't exercised your power until now. Most men don't realize they've lost a good woman until she's no longer trying. Until she's not texting first, not checking in, not asking what's wrong. And at first, he might take it as silence or even think you've moved on. But then it starts to hit him. You're done trying. That's when fear sets in. Not fear of being alone, but fear of losing someone who genuinely cared, someone who gave him chances, someone who saw potential in him. When you walk away, you don't just stop showing up. You stop carrying the hope that he'll one day change, and that absence is crushing. It confronts him with his own behavior. It makes him sit with the fact that someone real loved him, and he let it slip through his hands. What makes walking away so impactful is that it reverses the emotional roles. You go from being the one trying to be chosen to being the one who chooses. That shift forces him to reevaluate everything. He starts to ask, what made her leave? What was she trying to tell me that I didn't hear? And those questions are painful because the answers reveal the ways he fell short. He starts to see the missed opportunities, the unreturned affection, the ignored conversations. And now the chase begins. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you stopped being easy to lose. That's the difference. He's not chasing mystery, he's chasing certainty he took for granted. Chasing doesn't start with attraction. It starts with emotional tension. It's the moment he feels something slipping away and doesn't know how to stop it. When you stop giving him the reassurance he once relied on, he starts to panic internally. Not always in a loud way, but in a deeply personal, private way. He may not even admit it out loud, but he feels it. The late night thoughts, the I wonder if she's moved on, the urge to check your social media. All of it starts building inside him. and it builds because you stopped feeding the dynamic that allowed him to stay passive. Your decision to walk away created the emotional pressure he never felt when you were chasing. When you no longer seek his validation, he starts seeking yours. It's ironic, but it's real, because when you're constantly trying to win someone over, you're giving them emotional leverage, but once you detach, once you realize that your peace matters more than their approval, that power flips. Now he's the one wondering if he's enough. Now he's thinking about what he has to offer you, not the other way around, and that mental switch is what makes the difference, because suddenly he's trying to earn something. He's not being pursued, he's doing the pursuing, and in that pursuit he begins to grow, because chasing someone of value forces a man to level up. This isn't about revenge, it's about revelation. When you walk away, you reveal the truth, not just about him, but about yourself. You show him that you were always more than what he saw, that the depth of your love came with expectations, that your loyalty wasn't unconditional, it was earned, and now that you've stepped back, he finally sees the standards you were holding all along. The beauty of this moment is that you no longer have to explain anything. Your silence becomes the proof, your distance becomes the clarity, and if he wants to come back, he'll have to rise to meet the version of you that no longer settles. People don't change when they're comfortable, they change when they're confronted, and walking away is the ultimate confrontation. It says, here's what happens when you don't show up. It's not about ultimatums, it's about reality. You're giving him a glimpse of life without your presence, your warmth, your energy, and that reality hits harder than any conversation ever could. He starts to feel the discomfort of losing something he didn't know how much he needed. And that discomfort, if he's the right kind of man, will move him. It will shake him out of his passivity and into action. But none of that happens while you're still trying to fix things. It only happens once you finally walk away. When a man feels the weight of losing you, it creates a shift inside him that logic can't control. It's not just about missing the daily conversations or the comfort of your voice, it's about realizing what he let slip away. Emotionally, this kind of loss hits harder because it's tied to regret, not just absence. Regret comes from recognizing that you had something valuable and didn't treat it like you should have. That realization causes an emotional reaction he didn't anticipate. You were constant, supportive, warm, and now all of that is gone. He starts to feel emotionally off balance, and that imbalance triggers an urge to restore what was lost. Suddenly, he's not just missing you, he's craving the emotional safety he didn't know you were providing all along. Loss wakes people up in ways affection never can. When someone has always been there, it's easy to believe they always will be. But when you walk away, when you pull back that love, that time, that energy, it disrupts his emotional rhythm. Things feel different. His days aren't filled with the same lightness because your presence used to soften everything. He might not admit it, but he feels the gap. He notices the silence. The jokes don't hit the same. The comfort is gone, and in that silence a mirror appears. He starts seeing the truth he avoided. That truth carries weight, and for the first time, he's forced to confront the consequences of how he treated you. You were never just a girlfriend, a date, or a text thread. Your presence was emotional security. You were a safe place, a calming presence, the voice that reassured him when life got loud. And that kind of emotional connection doesn't just disappear, it leaves a lasting imprint. So when you walk away, you're not just taking back your time, you're removing a sense of emotional stability. That's what makes him spiral. He's not just chasing you, he's chasing the version of himself that only existed when you were around. The confident, supported, grounded version. He feels exposed now, vulnerable, because you weren't just someone he dated. You were a part of his identity he didn't realize he relied on until it was gone. Men are conditioned to suppress feelings, to hide vulnerability, but even the strongest armor can't protect against genuine loss. When you disappear, it disrupts his emotional control. He might try to act unaffected, posting on social media, keeping busy, even dating someone else, but none of that works because the loss he feels isn't on the surface, it's internal. It shows up in quiet moments. In the middle of the night, during long drives, when a song comes on that reminds him of you, that's when the emotional wave hits, and it doesn't care how tough he pretends to be. That wave reminds him he didn't just lose a relationship, he lost a connection that made him feel seen and understood in ways no one else could. Walking away forces him into a space of emotional reflection. When you're no longer around, he finally has to sit with the discomfort of his choices. No more distractions, no more noise, just his own thoughts echoing the truth he tried to ignore. It's in that silence that emotional growth begins. He replays conversations in his head. He starts noticing how emotionally unavailable he may have been, how many times he brushed off your feelings, how often he prioritized ego over effort, and each realization stings a little more than the last. Not because he's just now seeing you clearly, but because he's finally seeing himself clearly. And that self-awareness is the beginning of the chase. It's easy to ignore someone's value when you never think you'll lose them. That's why walking away is so powerful. It removes the illusion of permanence. Suddenly, you're not there to answer calls, to check in, to remind him of your love. He has to live without your emotional investment. And that withdrawal creates a kind of panic, a realization that someone else could now experience what he took for granted. He begins to remember the way you listened, how you made him laugh, how you forgave when you shouldn't have had to. All of it starts to rush back in fragments, and those memories aren't just fond recollections. They become emotional triggers that stir up deep longing and unexpected pain. What separates emotional pain from surface level regret is the depth of what's lost. You didn't just offer attention. You offered consistency, kindness, belief. You held him up when he doubted himself. You reminded him of his potential when he wanted to quit. That's not something people replace. So when it's gone, there's an emotional void left behind, and that void can't be filled with distractions or rebounds. It follows him, it haunts him, it lingers in every quiet moment. That emotional gap is the very thing that begins to drive his pursuit. Because now he's not just remembering you, he's feeling the weight of what your absence does to him, and that feeling becomes unbearable. The emotional tension that builds in your absence grows over time. At first, he may not even understand it. It just feels like unease, then it turns into restlessness. Eventually, it becomes a full-blown ache. That ache is a combination of missing you, missing how he felt around you, and missing the emotional version of life that only existed when you were part of it. This kind of ache can't be numb, it has to be resolved. And resolution in his mind means one thing: getting you back. Not because he's bored, not because he's lonely, but because nothing else is filling that emotional space. Nothing else brings the peace, the comfort, the joy you once gave so freely. There's a certain irony in emotional pain. It forces people to chase clarity they once ignored. He might start asking mutual friends about you, checking your posts, remembering things he never paid attention to before. Why? Because pain drives curiosity, and curiosity turns into action. When someone hurts emotionally, they want relief, and the only relief he believes will work is having you back in his life. He doesn't even realize he's chasing yet. He just feels compelled to reconnect, to fix, to say the words he didn't say when he had the chance, and that desire doesn't come from logic. It comes from the soul-level discomfort of knowing he had something irreplaceable and let it go. He may not cry in front of anyone, he may not send a dramatic message right away, but internally a storm is brewing. It's emotional, it's intense, and it's real. That storm is full of what-ifs and should-haves. It's full of moments where he wishes he'd shown up better, wishes he'd listened, wishes he'd held on to you instead of testing your patience. And the longer you stay gone, the louder that storm gets, not because you're punishing him, but because he's punishing himself now. With every memory, with every missed opportunity, with every ounce of emotional pain that tells him, she was the one, and I let her walk away.